Shout out to all the usual suspects tuning in around the world to the P.V.R Life project. Today we have a special guest with us, a very prolific man, Darwyn Woodhouse, aka D.A. Writer, repping East Saint, right?
That's right. That's right.
Right on, right on.
The burnt egg roll.
How you been, man?
Man, I've been good, man. How you been?
I'm all right. I'm all right.
Good, good. How the family, man?
They're good. Yeah. How are you on time? You got a little bit of time to talk?
Yeah. I got plenty.
Oh, okay. You look almost the same as what I remember the last time I saw you back in 1998. I always liked you though, man, when I met you back in the day, because I was like, man, this guy has some good positive energy.
Man, that's what's up.
I always respected that about you.
Same thing when I met you, man. When I met you and your brother. For real.
You were in my younger brother Doug's grade, right?
Right.
Oh, okay. Do you smoke or drink?
I definitely drink. I don't smoking. I don't really smoke too much. I do it on occasion.
Oh, okay. Yeah, man, if you want to have a drink later on or however you're feeling, it's all good. I'm 100% sober right now, but but I smoke weed and drink a little bit, you know.
Oh yeah, that's what's up.
Usually when I smoke, it helps like loosen me up.
I'm digging that whole background you got with the posters, man. That's dope.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's part of the I guess the setup for the video podcast. This video podcast, it'll go on my YouTube channel, and then the audio, I clip the audio and then put it on Apple Podcast and Spotify. What's been going on with you, man?
Oh man, it's just been grinding, man. Just finishing up with my little IT certification for school, and still grinding with my podcast thing, still thinking up new ideas and, trying to come out with the next season. I got the first season already done. Still trying to come up with, ideas and guests for the next season.
Since we're in the moment, you can go ahead and plug your podcast right now.
Oh yeah, you can look me up on Spotify or Google Podcasts or Anchor. Podcast is Money Under the Table, hosted by yours truly, D.A. Writer.
Right on. That's what's up. Were you born in East St. Louis or were you born somewhere else and then moved there?
The hospital I was born in is in Belleville, Illinois. Immediately after that, we moved to East St. I lived in East St. for the first 11 years of my life.
When you were going to Holy Cross with me, like, where were you living at that time? You were still in East St.?
Yeah, I was still in East St. for 5th grade and then part of 6th grade. And then we moved up here to Belleville. I lived there for like 14 years. And then that's when I got into college and started moving around a little bit around here. I pretty much stayed here in the St. Louis area my whole life. I ain't lived nowhere else.
How long did you go to Holy Cross for?
From 5th grade to 8th grade.
What was your experience like there at Holy Cross? It must have been kind of like a weird time in your life, huh?
Yeah, it was real weird, man, because, just going to school in East St., District 189, and then, jumping straight from there, and Holy Cross is mostly white school, so it was just real different trying to, adapt to how they work and how things go there versus where I came from. Where I came from, it was just a totally different environment. Not really better or worse. It was just different. At first, it was hard for me to adjust. I was getting into a lot of fights when I got to Holy Cross.
How did my little brother treat you? Was he good to you?
Oh yeah, but man, from the very start, man, like he was cool, man. He was like one of the people, like I was literally legit calling him my friend. Like I was like, yeah, this my man's right here. Like he's my boy. I really messed with your brother, man.
What was the decision process in you going to Holy Cross? Was there something that was going on in East St. that made your parents put you over there?
Yeah, what it was like a lot of the schools at that time. A lot of the schools were plummeting in funding from the government, and a lot of the schools in District 189 and East St. at that time, they just really weren't keeping up with what was going on, especially as far as like the technology wise. The school I had came from before I went to Holy Cross, that was like the only elementary school that had computers. None of the other elementary schools had any computers. And that was the reason why my mom sent me and my sister to that school. But then that school as well, it just started going down as far as like funding, and then a lot of the staff a lot of them were underpaid, and it reflected in their attitude towards us. It was really the start of the decline of the East St. Louis school district.
What school were you going to in East St. Louis before Holy Cross?
It was called Alta Elementary School.
After Holy Cross, where did you go to high school at?
I went to Lutheran North in St. Louis for my freshman and sophomore year. And then my junior and senior year, I finished up at Belleville East.
Between those high schools, which one did you like better?
It's a hard question. Not really one I like better or worse. It's just that the circumstances were different. Because it was like going to Lutheran North. I had to take the train and the bus to school every day. So I had to be up at like 5 in the morning every day to go to school. And then Lutheran North is like a 30-minute drive from my house, so it was like an hour train ride.
What was the demographic at Lutheran North? Was it mostly white or black?
That was mostly black. I mean, there was a good amount of white people there too.
With going to Holy Cross and being around more Caucasian people, you kind of have a different perspective probably about white people, because I know there's some people that grew up in East St. Louis that probably never been around white people at all, or rarely, right? So how did that kind of like change your scope or perspective, if it did at all?
Yeah, it changed it because it just made me see like a lot of the things that we go through, they go through too. I know a lot of people kind of like put white people on this like pedestal as like their life is so great, their life is so luxurious, and people want to strive to be like them, but they have problems as well. They have things that they struggle with as well. It's not all the glitz and glamour that people think.
There's a whole bunch of questions that I want to ask you, but since we're on the topic, I guess, of race, like I was looking through your Instagram and I see that you're very well read, I think, as far as like Black history. You have a lot of pictures of like Malcolm X, Minister Farrakhan, Tupac. Were you able to read the autobiography of Malcolm X?
I haven't got around to that one yet. My sister's still holding it. So I'm trying to get it from her, but I haven't read that one yet. I'm looking forward to reading that one. A couple months ago, I finished The Miseducation of the Negro by Carter G. Woodson. That's a real good read. It really made me think about like how our minds as Black people are just purposely molded by outside influencers, and we don't even realize it. The reason why these things happen to us or why we live the way we do is all predetermined based on things that were put in place that we didn't have any control over, or that we didn't even know about or didn't think about. It was a real good read. It really opened my mind up about how we're miseducated on a lot of things on purpose so that people can easily control us.
I agree with that, and I think a lot of things that we see are in America are socially engineered.
Yeah.
And we don't even know, right? And there's a bigger agenda. I mean, that's another thing that we can go into, but like going back to like, I brought that book up because, I read that book when I was like 31, and that book, it changed my life tremendously. That book right there probably had the biggest impact on my life, because prior to reading that book, we just know about By Any Means Necessary.
Right.
And that's what most people know about Malcolm X. But when you read that book, it takes you inside his mind. And he's way deeper than that. One of my favorite quotes from that book was, he said, "If a man can't look himself in the mirror and say I'm guilty, he'll never know the truth." That was powerful to me. Another thing that he said in that book was, I'm sure you'll probably go ahead and read it, but like towards the end, like he went on a pilgrimage to Mecca towards the end of his life. And he met a lot of white people out there in Mecca. And he said that some of these white people that he met were more holy than some of the people that he was around in America that he thought were the most holy. At the Nation of Islam, he was known for preaching separatism and separating the blacks from the whites. He was talking about the blacks should have their own nation state in America. But after he split up with the Nation of Islam and then took that trip to Mecca and met some white people, that changed his perspective on white people. And he came back to America and he said that the way I felt before about white people is different than how I feel today. He's like, I'm not against all white people. He said, I'm against the white racist people. But prior to that, when he was in the NOI, he was anti-white everything. He didn't want no parts of white people.
Right.
He said, the only thing I want white is the cream in my coffee. That's what he was saying, man. That's what his mind state was at when he was in the Nation of Islam for 12 years. But the thing that I respected about him was that throughout his life, he changed so much. And that taught me that it's okay to learn and grow and change your mind and say, you know, the way I used to think was wrong.
Right.
Because I didn't know, you know, or I thought I knew based off what the people around me said or how my parents taught me or whatever, you know. But that book taught me that, you know, it's okay to grow and let go of ways of thinking of how we used to think in the past. So that was a very transformational book for me.
That's a real powerful synopsis you came up with there, bro. Like, for real. Yeah, definitely one of the things I took from Malcolm is like, you know, always think for yourself. Because, you know, when he was with the NOI, a lot of the words he spoke weren't necessarily his own. And then when you can tell, like, when he, you know, branched away from the NOI, like, he started thinking for himself and coming up with his own ideas, being his own guide and using his own wits, his own wisdom. That's a big thing I respected about Malcolm too, because it's just hard when, you know, you have somebody who just teaches you pretty much everything you know, and to break away from that and just say, well, now I'm gonna go off of what I think. That's something that I respected a lot about Malcolm X.
Yeah, whenever you can get a chance to read that book, man, I think it'll be a good thing. You know, I think you'll learn a lot more than what you probably already know about him.
Yeah, you definitely got me wanting to beat my sister up for that book now.
It's a good book, man. It's a long book. It's like 400 some pages, but when I started reading it, it really engaged my mind and I went through it pretty quick because I was at a time in my life at that time, around in my early 30s, around your age now, where I was like, okay, I did all this stuff in my life, but I didn't really feel like I knew who I was. And I was searching. And so that book kind of helped me give me some direction as far as what I think I can become if I have an idea and then have goals and keep working towards them. Since then, I've been reading a lot of books, reading autobiographies about people that write about their life and their struggles is important. And a lot of people don't take the time to read autobiographies of people that we think we can become, because they give you more insight and perspective into the struggles and all the hardships that people go through to get to a certain point in their life. That's important to know. Another good book I'll recommend to you is Kevin Hart's book, I Can't Make This Up. Did you read that one yet?
I never would have thought to read that one.
It's a good book, man. Kevin Hart's autobiography. If you get a chance to read that one, you might not have aspirations to be a comedian, but the stuff that he went through to get to the point where he's at today, you'll be like, God damn, most people won't go through that struggle. They won't be willing to put in all the hard times and getting rejected and doing stand-up shows for no money or little money and not giving up. Yeah, reading autobiographies of people we look up to I think it's a good way to keep your mind going when you face some struggles or tough times in your life for whatever you're trying to do. And you're like, man, it's not working out, but you can get an idea of all the people that we think are successful. And then we realize, oh, okay, these people went through harder struggles than we're probably willing to go through to get what we want. It gives you more perspective, I guess. Yeah, I told you I was listening to your podcast yesterday with your guy, Accurate the Wise. That's how you pronounce his name, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And one of the things that you said in that podcast, you know, you talked about racist teachers that automatically assume that you maybe aren't as smart, right, as white people or other races, right?
Right.
Did you feel that way particularly in college, or what, you felt it some in high school as well, or grade school?
Yeah, I felt it in high school, mainly in college though. When I got to college and I got to those, you know, upper level classes, it even went so far as to like a teacher was giving me a lower grade for no reason. Like my work was more than likely better than my classmates, but it wasn't reflecting on my grade. And it's been several times where I go to a teacher and ask, hey, why is my grade so low? And they'll be like, well, you just need to change some things. I'm like, well, what do I need to change? I've done this, I've done that, I've done this, I've done that. So if I'm doing X, Y, and Z, my grade should be better. a lot of times they would never give me an explanation as to why I'm doing poorly in the class, and I already knew from the, just from the jump, like, that's why you just giving me these grades just based on the way I look and not based on my work, because my work is good. I mean, I was in a junior level English class in college, and the teacher straight told me I don't know how to write a thesis. I say, what, lady? I don't know how to write a thesis. I've been writing a thesis for 10 years. Like, come on now.
That's messed up, man.
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge, but I'm glad I went through those things because it taught me a lot. And it definitely prepared me for the real world.
Mm-hmm.
The real world is a lot like that as well. You get out here in the job market or whatever the case may be, it's the same thing. People are going to look at you and they're going to automatically make assumptions about you. Whether you're black or Latino or Asian or whatever.
That's funny that, or not, I won't say funny, but you went through that. But sometimes for me, being Asian, growing up in the East St. Louis area, like, I always felt like teachers thought I was supposed to be smarter, because I'm Asian, right? They're like, how come this?
Right.
So in a way, it's a little bit like reverse racism, but like, how much is it like psychological versus actuality? Like, that's probably what they're assuming, that I should be doing better because I'm Asian. It got to a point where, like, when I was like in high school, college, like, I really didn't care about school that much. I did okay, but like, if I was more focused at that age, I think I could have done better. But I never really had like a vision or a goal of what I wanted to become. So how hard are you going to try if you don't see yourself doing something related to what you're learning?
Right.
And a lot of times, I think a lot of kids probably feel that way in college. They are taking a lot of classes and they don't really know like what's going to happen after college. They just assume that once I graduate, I'm going to get a job. Having a college degree is going to lead to a job, but they don't really have an idea of the stress and struggles that people have to face in order to get a job, right? And all the rejections and people turning you down at job interviews and things of that nature. So that's why I feel like what Tupac was saying about how like people need to or schools, they need to like have classes on other things, like
right. Yeah.
I don't know if you ever heard Tupac speak about that, but
yeah, they have classes on politics and some other stuff that we constantly are faced with as adults, rather than a lot of the stuff that we're learning as kids in school. Yeah, I remember that.
Looking at it, I can say the reason why is because school gets people ready to work for other people. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't. Right. School doesn't teach people how to be entrepreneurs and hustlers, right?
Right.
But I think that's the way it's set up. So it's up to the people. It's up to us to say, okay, we did that. We did the formal education. But if I don't want to work for somebody, I have to think of something else. What can I become to put food on the table? That's the grind and the hustle that I think we learn later in life. They say real education starts after formal education.
That's so true. So true.
What kind of got you into podcasting?
I was presented with the idea from a couple of friends. At first, we were going to be like have a group podcast, but they just kind of, fell off with the idea. They didn't want to do it anymore. But, I was so intrigued with the idea and some of my own ideas that I kept it going, and I just did it on my own. Then I started, talking to a bunch of people. Like, if I do a podcast, will you come on and be a guest for me? I would tell them like, this is what my podcast is about. I'm going to be highlighting positive Black people in our area, business owners, professionals, community leaders, any positive Black people I can get my hands on. Every time I ask someone to come on, it's always excitement. It's like, yeah, of course, I'll do it. First I start off with just like 2 or 3 people in mind, and then next thing I got like 10 people, and it just kind of snowballed into this thing, and it's like, man, like, I should really get this going because I was getting so much support for it.
Right on. That's what's up. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same game as you, man. I just always had the idea to do a podcast. And, I was working on other projects at the time, but finally some time freed up and I was like, all right, yeah, this is what I feel like doing, because I like talking to different people, getting their points of views, perspectives, because there could be the same subject or topic and I could ask 10 different people and get 10 different perspectives on it. And I think that's how people grow, through information and getting different perspectives, because in our mind only think like this is the only way, then that's where you're going to be, right? You're going to get stuck. And I think a lot of people, they get stuck and they get comfortable and their mind doesn't grow anymore. They don't think they can achieve more in life. And so I think it's always about setting goals and trying to do better. I like your idea in your podcast, you know, what you're trying to do. And I think on the grand scale, I'll give you what I think about how like I want to approach my podcast, and maybe, you know, it can help you moving forward too as well. I always dream of talking to people that inspired me when I was a kid. And when we're kids, we're like, man, these people are so great. But now that we're older and some of the people might be on a different level or different place in their life, they might be out of the spotlight. So with Instagram and Twitter, I think there's some people that we looked up to when we were kids that are more accessible today. So I think what you could do easily too as well, which is what I'm going to try to do later, is over time just like hit up as many people that interest me, that inspired me when I was a kid, and then try to set up like a podcast with them. Like a couple people I have in mind is like people from Bone Thugs-n-Harmony. That was like my favorite group as a kid. Like, yeah, they inspired me. Like I listen to their music still in 2020 and their words still hold true today. TQ, I don't know if you remember him. He had this track called West Side that was big in like 1998. He's not as big as he used to be anymore, but I feel like I want to chop it up with him and pick his brain about things. Yeah, just different people like that, you know, that inspire me. But in the meantime, we have to like continue to grow and get better at our own craft, you know, getting more comfortable at what we do. And then I think over time try to like build relationships with those kind of people. You know, I say all that to say that local people is cool, but always thinking like bigger is always the way to go, right? I could do better, or I could do more. And get bigger people on your podcast. And I think that'll help your podcast grow faster. But you have to figure out a way to strategize and build relationships with people that I guess have a bigger name than us currently, right?
Right.
So like I always like leave comments on like Busy Bones page, Instagram page, you know, and he'll like some of my comments and stuff, you know. So
that's right.
So it's all about like eventually getting the courage to say, yo, I have this podcast. Do you mind being on it? But I know that in order to get like bigger names on your podcast, I think you have to have like a portfolio of work, right? Because they're going to be like, who is the burnt agro, you know, who is a DA writer, right? So they're going to want to look at your old work and see, okay, is this person someone I want to talk to? Yeah, it's just about improving on your craft and then building relationships and then getting the courage to ask. I think you could do that too, you know.
I'm definitely gonna have to work on that courage to ask. You know, I'll be like, yeah, you know, I got a little podcast, but you know, it ain't nothing.
Yeah, I believe in you. I know you can do more than what you think you can in your mind, right? So it's just building that confidence and believing in your work. Here's something that I wanted to ask you. I know you're a hip hop fan.
Yes, sir.
I'm a hip hop fan. Hip hop has kind of changed over time since it came out. And I think mainstream music, mainstream hip hop, I feel like they don't play the type of music that will help people. They used to, I feel like. I guess in the beginning it was, well, with The Message, that track by
Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5.
Yeah. That track, it was one of the first hip hop tracks, but it had a message, right?
Right.
And I feel like hip hop has always had a message, but mainstream hip hop over time, it became more dumbed down to the masses. Every once in a while, they will put out some artists like Talib Kweli, Mos Def, some rappers that had more substance, right? But they wouldn't go out of their way to promote it. It would get big off of its own strength, and it would be like sprinkled throughout the radio, and if it was a good song, it would pick up. One artist that I felt like that did well at that was Kanye West in the beginning. I feel like Kanye's on some bullshit right now, but when he first came out, I fucked with him a lot because he had the balance between being conscious but also being cool, you know?
Right.
So people were like, okay, this guy's cool and he's saying something. Today, I feel like there's still a few artists doing that, like J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
Like little kids look up to them and be like, okay, these guys are cool. Like they're not nerds and stuff, and they're saying something, and they're not trying hard to be something that they're not. Right. So they found that right balance. But I was going to ask you, what are your thoughts as far as mainstream hip hop today, and how do you feel like it affects, I guess, particularly the Black community?
I think mainstream hip hop now is more so focused on, it's more like a brand now. If your brand isn't building, it's like you're not going to have as much success in this game. It seems just like whoever got the most views on YouTube or the most followers on social media, those are the people that are going to pop off, you know. And it's just like, well, dang, it's like y'all don't care about the talent, the body of work, the quality of work. Y'all just care about, like, you know, what they doing on social media or whatever. I know one artist who always pop up in my head when I think about that is like Kevin Gates. When he was, you know, popping on Instagram and social media and stuff, you know, that's when everybody was, you know, really fucking with his music.
I fuck with Kevin Gates, man.
Yeah, I fuck with Kevin Gates a bit too, but it seemed like more people were listening to his music when he had that bigger following on social media. You know, now that his social media isn't like it used to be, it seemed like his listening crowd's gone down. He doesn't have that buzz.
But I think like entertainment, especially like music, is kind of like it's a very fickle industry. Especially today, they don't stay hot forever, right? You know, so I feel like a lot of times it's about like once you get your name up, it's about creating new opportunities off your name.
Right.
Once your name is popping, then you got to kind of transition into different like business opportunities. And I think a lot of rappers or entertainers, they don't think long term. But right. there's a few that did it well. Like I would say 50 Cent was able to do it. Jay-Z was able to do it. Those are the two off the top of my head that I feel like did it big. You know, they made their name hot and then built business empires off of it. Oh, Drake. I feel like Drake is one of those guys too that he does it well too. He knows how to use his name to leverage other business opportunities. Right. So Kevin Gates, I feel like his music was hotter, I guess, per se at one point, but it's all about what are you doing to build a business, right, off your name,
right,
and get bread that way. Because the thing about music is that, you know, kids grow up, right? Music can inspire anybody at any age, but the people that really tune into music, I think, are teenagers and people in their early 20s and stuff. They're really more focused on the music. Eventually, those kids are going to grow up, right?
Right. Exactly.
And their mind is going to grow. And so if the artist doesn't grow with the audience, then eventually they're going to fall off, right?
Right.
And I think a lot of artists don't understand that. So it's either they elevate their content or they keep rapping or singing about the same stuff, and then the audience is going to grow, right? Because it's like there's still artists that I grew up with. For example, say Usher, right? I fuck with Usher a lot, but he's still making good music today in 2020. But if you ask a teenager, they're going to be like, man, that dude's old.
Right. Like, man, you just don't know.
Yeah, so I feel like a lot of artists don't understand that, young artists, that in order to have longevity, they have to constantly change, kind of like Lil Wayne did, right?
Right.
He started off as like with the Hot Boys and all that, but then he transitioned into some Martian skateboarder eventually, right?
Yeah.
And grew a new audience. He thought outside of the box. He was like, okay, if I keep rapping that gangster stuff, like eventually there's going to be another younger artist that's cooler than me that probably gains the attention of the young people, but how do I keep that attention? I have to recreate myself. And so he created that character, and I feel like that gave him a longer life in the game.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Tekashi 6ix9ine?
Yeah.
Like that dude. I don't mess with his music. He only has like one track that I like, that Gotti Gotti track. I was like, yo, that track's hard. But other than that, I feel like, man, this dude's a troll, man, and he just talks a lot of bullshit.
Yeah, he do.
But like teenagers, they like that. Kids that are like 12 and 13, because it's attractive to them. People like that, I guess, like unless he's able to transition and recreate himself over time, like eventually his fan base is going to grow.
Right.
They're going to become older.
You know, I also like really pay a close attention into, well, I'm speaking on as rappers. like how they're rapping, like how they're constructing their songs and what are they saying in their songs, just to judge their talent. But I feel like if you really don't have talent, you're not really gonna last a long time. I mean, you can have all the gimmicks in the world. If you don't have that talent to back it up, you're not gonna really last in this game. I know a rapper who kind of did that well was Meek Mill. See, Meek Mill, he came in with a certain type of image or just coming in with like hardcore songs, and then over time his talent kept him going, and then he switched it up a little bit, started making a little more softer songs for the female crowd, and then kind of dulled it down for the mainstream audience. I just feel like that if an artist really has talent, that's really going to take them somewhere.
Were you able to catch his documentary that Jay-Z produced on Amazon?
Yeah, I did. That was so good.
Yeah, I watched that too, man. I was like, man, this dude had a tough life.
Man, yeah, he really did. And it just, man, that documentary just showed me, man, just if you just stay strong-minded, strong-willed, sky's the limit for you, man. I mean, they just threw everything at him. The judicial system just threw everything at him, just wronged him in so many ways. From the night of the arrest all the way up until now, man, for him to stay strong and not lose focus of what his ultimate goal was, it was real inspiring.
Yeah. I mean, that type of stuff happens to many black kids across this country that we live in all the time, but sometimes their stories don't get told, right? Because they might not have as big of a name as him. So I appreciated that documentary because, it brings light to what's really going on. Do you feel like there will ever come a day where we see some type of point where racism isn't such a big political issue, or do you feel like it's so far ingrained in America's DNA that it won't never change?
I feel like racism will always be a part of America because that's how the rich and powerful stay powerful, is to keep people divided and keeping certain people down. It's like they have to step on somebody's back to get to the next level. And black people have been the people who have constantly getting their back stepped on so other people can get to the next level. The way white America has constructed their power system, I feel the only way that we can not be that stepping stone for others is for us to just physically just get out of that place. And that's going to take somewhat of acts of war. A lot of people don't want that. A lot of black people don't want that. It's just a real complex situation, and it's such a complex answer to a complex question. It's just it's hard to say if it's just one thing that's going to affect change. To me, the thing that's going to affect the most change is for us to start taking what we want by force, because these people are not going to give it up willingly.
So you think like some type of civil war is inevitable?
I would not say inevitable for us, but I would say that like a civil war would be the major move to see the type of change that we want to see. And it's like a lot of black people aren't willing to give up what they have to see that happen. Because it's like, well, if we go to war with these people, that means I'm going to have to give up maybe money, maybe assets, maybe public views. There's going to have to be sacrifice for us to get where we want to be as a people. And a lot of people aren't willing to make those sacrifices.
Yeah. And also throughout like history, American history, like anytime there was like a great black leader that would unite and mobilize the black community, they've always been taken out.
That's right.
And that's what you were talking about, is they like to divide and conquer.
That's right.
And they know that if there's a strong, charismatic leader that is able to unite and mobilize, we can't have that.
Right.
And we've seen that throughout history with the Black Panthers and Malcolm X, Martin, Fred Hampton.
That's who I was thinking of too, Fred Hampton. They killed him because, he was mobilizing not only just the black community, but also other communities as well, such as poor whites and Latinos. And, his goal was to bring all those people together to fight the opposition.
Yeah, I think most like leaders of countries, they know that, in order for them to stay on top, there has to be someone on the bottom. Right. And most countries are homogenous, meaning that everybody's all mostly the same, right? Like if I go to like China or Korea, if I don't dress this way, I'm gonna look like everybody else, right? Face wise. But in America is such a melting pot. You have people from all different countries come into this country. And so in America, it's different because in other countries, there would be the poor people that they keep on the bottom. But out here, it seems like it's the black people that they try to keep on the bottom, Right. And the fact that they even debate racism and issues in the black community during like presidential debates, that tells me there's a fucking problem to even make it that big of an issue. But I think they do that for a purpose, right? It's to keep the people in the country divided. But I think you and I know, since I grew up in East St. Louis, in that area, not in East St. Louis, but close enough, right, that I had a lot of my friends that were from East St. Louis, or, I had a lot of black friends, so I can relate to them, and I know we can get along, because me and you, we proved it, right?
Most definitely.
We don't fight like white people unless they fuck with us, right?
Right.
And most people don't give other people problems, right? Unless people make it an issue, right? But I think by the media and the government, they make it an issue. So you have a lot of people thinking that there's a problem, right? But people can get along, and me and you are living proof of that. Not to say that there isn't racism in this country. There is. That's a fact. You see people within like black communities getting beat down by the police or being harassed by police for no reason, right? That's just happened to me out here in LA. I'll give you one example. Me and one of my friends, he's a black dude. He was wearing like a black hoodie, and I was driving, and I was in a rush. We were going to this Chino Hills basketball game when LaMelo Ball was playing there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So we were on the way to that game where LaMelo Ball, remember he scored like 91 or 92?
Yeah, I remember that game.
Yeah, I was at that game, and we were on our way to that game, and we got pulled over by the police, and it was a Spanish police officer. And from the moment like he pulled us over, like I could tell on his face that he had some kind of agenda, like he was trying to get us jammed up.
Yeah. And
luckily I hadn't drank or smoked all day. I like to smoke, but like I was sober, thank God, that day. And like he pulled us over, and then me, I know how to politic with police. I give them their respect, and usually they give me my respect back. But this guy, I could tell he wasn't having it. He's like, I need both of your guys' IDs, and then I need you to pull up off the next exit. And I was like, okay. And so I gave him my ID, but before I gave him my ID, he was like, I need your ID so you don't try to run away. And in my mind, I'm like, run away? I was never even thinking about running away. So I gave him my ID, pulled up off the next freeway exit. And then he came over and he was like, I need you to step out of the vehicle. And I'm like, okay. And my friend, he's black, and he grew up in certain areas in LA that he's used to it. He's like, I used to get pulled over at least 3 times a week in my hood by the same police officer. He's like, me and certain officers knew each other by a first name basis. And he's like, they'd pull me over and be like, where are you going? For no reason. And that shit is very common in black communities around the country. And so long story short, my friend was like, what did you pull us over for? And the cop was all like, don't worry about it. He got me out of the car. He searched me. He's like, you got any drugs or weapons on you? I'm like, nah. And he's like, he put me in the back of the police car. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, what the fuck? You didn't even tell us why you pulled us over. Why am I in the back of the police car? And he did the same thing to my friend. So me and my friend were both in the back of the police car, and we don't know why. And the only thoughts that were going through my head were like, I just hope this guy doesn't take us like on that movie Menace to Society and drop us off in another neighborhood. Because that shit happens, I know people out here in LA that shit happened to them personally. They were harassed by police, and then the police took them and didn't take them to the station, just dropped them off in like a gang neighborhood. It's fucked up out here sometimes. So That's what I was thinking. But then he came back into the police car, and he was like running all our information, and we're both good citizens. I would say we don't have any like warrants or any type of stuff. After like about 10 minutes in the back of the police car, and he didn't find anything, he was like, all right, you guys can go. And I was like, all that for what? Right. And I say all that because I know that shit happens to Black people and other minorities on a regular basis. So if that shit is happening to you like every day or every other day, of course you're gonna eventually get pissed off, right?
Right.
You're like, I'm just walking down the street or I'm just driving somewhere. Why are you fucking with me? So I know racism is a issue in America. I don't know, have you ever had any like personal experiences like that?
Oh, most definitely. It happened when I was 19. I was at a little hotel party with two of my cousins and then a couple of my friends. This was in St. Louis. I think it was like 1:00 in the morning or something. We left the hotel to go to the gas station because my cousin said he wanted something to drink, just like a Gatorade or something. Mm-hmm. And we get to the gas station, I pull up into it's 1 a.m. We're like the only car there. I pull up into the handicap spot and I just sat there and I'm sitting in the car's still running. I said, y'all go in real quick, get what y'all need, and then we gonna be out of here because, I didn't want to park far from the door because we out in St. Louis, I don't really know the neighborhood like that. So, I don't want to get too far away from them. So I just pull up close to the door. I told them to go in and, get what y'all need and come right back out. I mean, before they even got out of the car, a police car just pulls up right behind me. And the cop gets out of the car and I say to the officer, I said, hey, we're gonna move. We're not gonna sit right here. I'm not parking right here. I'm letting them out and I'm finna move. And he was just like, get out of the car. I'm like, hold on, man. I said I'm finna move. Like I'm not even doing nothing. They going in the store and I'm finna move. He's just like, get out of the car right now. I'm like, okay. And then I got out of the car and then he just handcuffs me, puts me in the back of the police car. I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Were you sober at this time?
Yeah, I was sober. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't high. Like my cousins and my friends, they were smoking. I didn't smoke none at the time. I didn't smoke at all. We had nothing in our car, nothing. This cop, he sits my cousins on the sidewalk while I'm in the back of the police car. He's questioning them, asking them, where's the weed at? What y'all got on you? My cousins were like, we don't have nothing on us. And then the officer proceeds to search my car. And at the end of the night, I ended up with a bogus parking ticket.
What was the parking ticket about?
About the handicap situation. And I'm like, dude, you just put me in handcuffs over a parking ticket. Like, that just doesn't add up at all. Handcuffed me, searched my car, set my cousins out on the sidewalk, ran our names, all this, and for what?
That's some bullshit.
Yeah, it really is, man. It just goes back to the fact that, they don't look at us as equal. The police look at us and they see inferior people, that we're a nuisance, a problem, that we're in the way. That's the big issue with the police and minority communities, is that they just don't have no respect for us. And I mean, of course, it stems from racism.
It goes back all the way to the slavery days, man. Like, that's right. The police force was started to catch runaway slaves. So right. There's racism behind the whole idea of policing. You know what I'm saying? In America.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, man, that's messed up. That happens like all the time, like every damn day.
Yeah. And
they wonder why. There's songs like "Fuck the Police" and minorities don't respect police officers.
Right. It's just like you've been brutalizing us for so long, and it's like you expect us to take it. Like, no, we're human beings, just like you are. Prick us, we bleed, just like you all do. And that's why people so up in arms about the police, because, it's just like, when is it going to be enough? When is it going to end? Because for generations, this brutality that has been inflicted upon our communities is just ridiculous. We're all tax-paying citizens, just like they are.
Tupac had one of the greatest lines on his first album, Tupacalypse Now. Tupac said in 91, he said, "We pay taxes so the police can beat on us."
That's right.
And I was like, whoo! And he was only probably like 19 or 20 when he wrote that, maybe 21. That's why I love Tupac, man, because he spit that real shit,
That's right.
Shit that got people to think.
Right. Because he's come from that. He comes from people who try to get you to see what's really going on, instead of just playing into whatever the distractions or the facade that, white people try to paint for you. So it'll distract you from the reality of what's really going on. Just coming up, just having a parent that's a Black Panther, he was already well versed in political issues like that.
Yeah, I'm reading a Tupac book right now, and his mom would say, every time when Tupac was young and he would do like misbehave like all kids do, his mom would make him read a book and then write a report on it. And say, what did you learn? Because she wanted Tupac to be an independent thinker. She didn't want him to just think like all the masses do and just learn the same shit that kids learn in formal education. She raised him to be an independent thinker and study different books and really think about it. Because that's one thing too, I think like in formal education, we're taught to memorize things and then take a test on it, right?
Right.
But in reality, that's not how human beings' brains work. It should be to read a book and then think about it and then ask yourself, what is my opinion or perspective on what I just read? And it's not for a grade and it's not to take a test, and that's what she wanted Tupac to learn as a young kid. And if you ever get online, Google like all the books that Tupac read, there's at least like 85 to like 90 books that Tupac was known to have read.
Wow.
And if you see the vast amount of topics that he read from these books, you understand why his level of thinking at the time he died at the age of 25 was a lot greater than a lot of people ever achieve in their whole lifetime, because he had that type of, I call it, or there's the term called crystallized intelligence, where you read a whole bunch of books and you don't really read them to take a test, but it's just information in your brain that you can channel at any time, right? So
right.
They call that crystallized intelligence. So that's why I read a lot of books, and I think it's important. You don't read books to take tests anymore, but you read it to have a broader understanding of the world and different people and different races. Psychic, I guess. I think a lot of people, when they get done with like high school and college, they're like, fuck man, I don't want to read books no more.
Right. a lot of people are turned off from reading because of just because of the way that, reading classes are structured in elementary and high school. It's just so routine. You know what I'm saying? Like, the questions are the same. They're asking you these questions, and it's just like, okay, I can answer that question, but what does this book really mean to me?
Yeah.
I'm trying to answer these few questions so I can pass this test.
Right. That's the problem with formal education. And that's why, like I said earlier, like real education starts after formal education.
Right.
Because they give you information overload in high school and college to the point you don't even want to read anymore.
Right. And then they give it to you at such a rate where you're not even getting a chance to even digest it.
Mm-hmm. Facts.
Right, to even like reflect on it, like, oh man, like now I get it. In school is just like you have to read so much and do so much by this certain point in time. A lot of times you don't even have a chance to digest the information. You just like, okay, I need this part for these questions.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times there's more in the reading that the questions don't even talk about. I've been trying to read more as well. Like I said, I finished the Carter G. Woodson book. I read it at my own pace. I didn't like try to finish it by a certain day. That's just when I finish it, I finish it.
Mm-hmm. I should show you like my bookshelf, like to my right here. It's like a full bookshelf. I read probably at least maybe, I'd say honestly, probably like 60 to 70% of all the books on my bookshelf. There's some books that I buy and I'm like, I'll get to that later.
Uh-huh.
But I try to challenge myself to read like books that are hard to read. I tell myself it's because it's more mentally challenging. Because if I only read books that interest me, then I can get through them fast because they're interesting, but it doesn't challenge my mind to grow.
Right.
So sometimes it's important to pick a book that maybe it's a tougher read, but it's going to help your mind in some way in the long run. Yeah, it's good to have like a diverse book collection. I try to challenge myself and say, I'm going to try to read one chapter every day out of a book. And sometimes if the book is very interesting, I'll read maybe like 2 or 3 chapters. And if it's kind of like a boring book, it might take me longer to finish it, but I always try to have a goal every day of at least 1 chapter.
What's next on your list to read?
I'm reading this one. This is the one that I was telling you about, Tupac. I had this book for so many years, man. I bought it back when I was living in St. Louis, and I never read it, man. I would just always like look at the pictures and stuff. But but finally I was like, man, I'm a Tupac fan. I got to know shit about his life too,
Right.
and how he came up and why he thinks the way he thinks. And so I started reading this one, and it's a good book. I got done reading this book called The 4-Hour Work Week. Have you heard of that one?
No, I haven't heard that one.
Oh, okay. It came out in 2009, and basically it just talks about how to prioritize your time better and then also allocate time to other people so you can free up more of your own time. For example, if you're an entrepreneur, I'll give you a personal example from me, since it might help you, since we're both in the podcast game. Eventually, when your podcast blows up, you might not have as much time to edit the audio, edit the video, make thumbnails, promote it. So you have to start thinking about how to pay somebody else to do that work for you. So this podcast right here that we're doing, I'm going to be editing all the audio and the video. It's so time consuming because you got to chop it up and get rid of all the dead space and the ums and the likes and the, all the bullshit, within the podcast to make it all nice and presentable to the public. And that's so time consuming. It might take me all day to edit one podcast. So that book, The 4-Hour Work Week, it kind of teaches you how to allocate your time and pay people to do your work, basically. Basically, if you're a business owner, eventually you're going to have to hire people to work for you, right?
Right.
And all the shit that you don't like doing, you can pay somebody else to do so you can do the fun stuff like recording.
Yeah, that's that right.
So without reading books like that, your mind would never know that you can do something like that or how to do something like that. Reading books to me is just filling your brain up with different new ideas on how to think. In the autobiography of Malcolm X, he said the best type of education is in college. It's prison. He said that because, in prison, you don't have anything but time to read, he said. He took that time when he was in prison to read a lot of books, because when he went into prison, he couldn't read. He had to learn how to read in prison. And then once he learned, he just started reading every book in the library, in the prison library. And that's why by the time he got out of prison, he could speak well and articulate his thoughts better because of all the knowledge he acquired in prison. A lot of good speakers or people that are able to move a lot of people, you realize that they're very strong readers. They read a lot. Cornel West, Cornel West, right?
Sure, yeah, I know Dr. Cornel West.
Yeah, he had a book that came out like in the 90s, I think, or maybe in the early 2000s called Race Matters. And that's one of the books that's on my future to read list because I was watching Cornel West on Joe Rogan's podcast, and the shit that Dr. Cornel West was saying, that shit moved me. I was laying in bed and I was like, damn, the way he speaks, like that shit is very inspiring. And I'm like, damn, I wish I could speak like that. But the only way to be able to speak like that is to have a lot of crystallized intelligence in your brain. And you get that through reading books.
Like also reading a lot of different books also helps you form your own ideas as well. Your brain kind of just piggybacks off the information you're reading and soaking up. Like it's like your brain just like, let me take this and then use it as fuel to go to another idea, something that, your brain is thinking of.
Yeah, I always say you don't know what you don't know.
Right. That's real.
That's why, like, doing these podcasts, like, I try to write stuff down about whoever I'm talking with, because all the bullshit we can talk about, if you want to talk about NBA, you want to talk about music, I could talk about that shit all day, because that shit's fun, right? But to really have some type of value to give to the world, to the people that are going to listen to your podcast, you have to know something. And you have to plan and have some type of questions that you feel like I think the world would want to hear. And sometimes the questions that you have to ask might be those hard questions that people don't like to talk about. The sensitive topics like race, sexism. The more knowledge and information you have, the more you can speak on it and give more educated opinions. Yeah, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I guess I'll ask you a couple more things before I let you go.
That's cool.
What are your thoughts as far as cultural appropriation?
Cultural appropriation is just such a weird topic now. It's because it's like everybody appropriates something from somebody. Now nothing's new. But what I will say is a lot what you've seen with cultural appropriation, you'll see one culture take something from another culture, but then they'll bash that culture or they'll hold that culture down.
Or not give them credit, right?
Right, or not give them credit for what they created. And we've seen that a lot with white culture, taking things from other cultures and not giving them credit. Or
White people are the fucking worst at that shit.
man, I swear they are, because it's just like I know I've seen lately. I've been seeing a lot of white people.
I don't know if I'm going to keep that in the podcast. They might think I'm a racist.
Then you'll hear those reverse racism comments. But yeah, I know I've been seeing a lot of white people lately, especially like white women doing rocking a lot of black hairstyles, as far as like cornrows, and a lot of white people been rocking dreadlocks lately. And it's like, when we were wearing those things, we were thugs, we were ghetto, we were all these negative things. And now you're gonna wear those same things we were wearing, and now when you're wearing it, oh, it's a fashion statement, it's high fashion, it's elegant, it's all these positive things. And that's something that I think is really the ugly part of cultural appropriation. But other than that, cultural appropriation can be a good thing because it could bring cultures together. I know that's happened with the black culture and particularly the Asian culture. We've kind of taken things from each other, and a lot of times it's brought our communities together, or it's brought our races together.
Wu-Tang Clan.
Exactly, Wu-Tang Clan.
Drew Hill.
Yeah, with the Enter the Dragon and all that.
More recently, you had Nicki Minaj come out with that track Chun-Li.
Yep.
That was a few years ago. And then you had Migos with Stir Fry.
Right.
Some Asians might get offended, but I was like, that's just dope, man. I like that. I like when cultures mix, but I guess just like you said, if they don't give credit where credit is due, that's when it becomes a problem. But as you said, I think it's mostly the white people that have been known to steal from other cultures or use other cultures and not pay their respect or make something big, and they don't show credit or pay people for it.
Or pay homage to people who've done it before them. And it's like, you're profiting off of us and you're not showing that love towards us. Like you said, that's when it becomes a problem.
Right. Have you heard of this woman named Candace Owens?
Yes.
What are your thoughts on her, man?
It's just when it comes to politics, like, it's hard to tell if people are really the way they are, because a lot of those people use those
platforms,
personas to
build their brand.
Yes, build their brand, or fuel a fire in a certain group of people, or light a fire in a certain group of people, so that can get them talking about it. Because in politics, it's just like Hollywood. There's no such thing as bad press. You always want to be on the minds of the voters. I really think that's what got Donald Trump in office, is that a lot of people hate him. That's why he got so many votes. It's like, yeah, it's like you may not agree with what he says, but he's one of the few people that you actually know, that a lot of people actually know, because they don't know those other politicians' names or whatever. But Donald Trump is known. They know Donald Trump. They're familiar with Donald Trump. With Candace Owens, I don't fuck with her either. I'm not even gonna lie. But
it is fucked up, man, because I see other people like on YouTube trying to be like her and build a brand just like her by going so far against the grain.
Yeah.
It's tough to watch. But like you said, man, it's hard to judge a human being, I guess, off of their persona or what they're saying, right, without actually sitting down with them and then looking them in the eye and saying, right, you really believe the bullshit you're saying?
Right.
And that's what I would want to do with her.
A lot of people probably don't believe that bullshit they're saying. They're just scripted. They're saying what other people are telling them to say, because that's what's gonna, get them votes, or that's what's gonna build their brand, so that they can get future votes. Politics, it's a dirty game, man. And a lot of people don't realize it. A lot of people think it's really black and white, and it's not. There's a lot more to it, and it's a lot more sinister than people think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not against like people trying to build their brand, right? Because at the end of the day, everybody wants to get paid, right? You want to make money, you need money to survive. But if you're building your brand and you have a lot of influence over a lot of young people's minds, but you're leading them in the wrong direction to build your brand, that's when I'm like, yo, I can't subscribe to that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, most definitely.
Because me and you, we both know, like, we're in the entertainment game, right? Podcasting is a form of entertainment, and to reach more people, we have to look at it as a brand and say, yo, how do we get money under the table higher? How do we get the P.V.R LYFE project higher? And sometimes you got to talk some shit, right? But if you're building your brand solely off of talking shit about other people, that's when I'm like, yo, I can't get down with that. Like you said, man, politics is a fucked up game. Yeah, man, I appreciate you taking the time to do this podcast with me, man.
Hey, no problem, man. Thank you for the opportunity.
No problem, man. Is there anybody you want to shout out or any closing words you want to tell the world?
I just want to give a shout out to my audio engineer, Mr. Darwyn McMorris. He edited the sound on all my podcast episodes, so he cleaned it up real good for me. Shout out to him. He's also a producer, and he makes beats, and he dabbles a little bit in it. Shout out to him, man. The only thing I got to say is keep your feet to the ground and your head to the sky, man. For real.
Right on. Appreciate you, my friend. Shout out to D.A. Ryder. Check out his podcast, Money Under the Table. That's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, right?
Yeah, I'm on Spotify and Google Podcasts.
That's what's up. That's it. Thank you.
All right, no problem, man. Thank you.
This concludes our danse macabre.